While many dragons are famed for their ferocious nature and their prowess in hunting and battle, some are a bit more docile. Some dragons are more akin to grazing animals or peaceful herds. Well, don't get me wrong, they're still dragons and omnivorous in nature, so they will eat people if they need to or are threatened, but in nature they are far from the hunters of the land that we come to know from these wild beasts. While there are many docile beasts of burden that fit this description, today I wish to speak of the ones known simply as gold carriers. See, they have this name for one very simple reason. They are famed for the fact that they are a mostly tamed species that live within the land of Sargild, and are used by the merchant lords of these lands as caravans to carry their rare gold. And they are perfect for this role too, as they are large, bulky beasts who put an ox to shame, but can also fly vast distances at immense speeds. They are really perfectly domesticated for this too, and have turned into a cattle by the people of this region, not just for their transportation qualities, but they're also bred quite commonly to look a bit more different depending on what their owners want, and they can be extracted for precious materials, such as their scales, and sometimes even their meat. Of course, their scales are nowhere near as good or wanted as an iron wing's, that's for sure, but they are definitely valuable, and I would not turn them down. It is for these reasons that no good merchant or noble has been seen working without them. They've almost become synonymous with wealth for this reason, and I think that's a little undeserved, since, while most merchants and nobles don't exactly get their hands dirty like the dragons do. And while I do not own any of these dragons, my family owns several of them. Convoys, that is. Most nobles need to make sure that they have a vast degree of them for transport purposes, and merchants are no exception to this either. Protecting the convoys is actually the most costly part of owning these beasts too, as their food intake is quite low. Well, it's enormous, just look at the size of them, but compared to everything else even remotely of this size, it's close to nothing. And the convoys get raided all the time by, well, everyone, really. I really don't mean that as a joke either. Every single group, ethnicity, religion, even the Skeldian soldiers and Outriders tend to raid the convoys, despite most of them being their allies. In fact, most of them even raid the convoys from other Vards. This is all mostly due to how chaotic and unstable these times are. The Age of Ashes is fraught with war and chaos, and the different legions need to get all the money they can get their hands on. Sometimes attacking another Vard is, well, just part of the way they see it. Of course, every leader under the sun that owns a gold carrier is absolutely outraged by this, but, well, no one can really prove anything. All scorch marks tend to look the same. And the really sad thing is that most tend to forget that the real victims of these attacks are really the poor gold carriers, as it's, well, almost everything they do. They're just being good little boys and girls and are getting attacked by, well, everyone. Sometimes by people who even look the same as their owners. They might deep down be fearing, well, what did I do wrong? But in reality, they're just carrying things. It is a very sad situation they find themselves in, and I do often feel bad for them every time I hear of yet another raided caravan in this region. But they are very numerous. They are in no way at risk of endangerment. In fact, I would almost say that they're probably one of the most largely populated species of dragon you can find. It is still sad when this happens, nevertheless, but now I'd like to get into their anatomy, as they stand out quite a bit compared to most other dragons. So, to start, they are large, absolutely massive, almost twice the size of most other dragonoids, and they are even bulky despite their size. Their bodies have 4 legs that are very thick with muscle and coated in a layer of absolutely thick, bulky scales. They have a singular horn on their head and a spike on their chin, pointy spikes on their wings that are used for all sorts of grabbing purposes, and quite large and jagged teeth that go from the top down mostly. It also helps that their wingspan is incredibly long, though their wings are not as thick as you'd expect. And like a lot of reptiles, they do not stop growing over time. The only limiting factor they have is how much they eat, and sadly, the most common form of death for them is, well, it's being raided, but also hunger and starvation, because they simply cannot sustain their own bodies anymore. In fact, Some convoys even have 3 or 4 absolutely massive ones amongst their ranks that everyone classes as greater than the others. But most of the time you will see them covered in saddles, or bags of gold, or chests full of wealth including gems, sometimes all 3. Oh, and something else I should note about them, they're very famously seen with giant golden nose rings. While many animals are given nose rings for different reasons, I'm fairly sure that gold carriers are given them to signify that they are not for breeding or livestock or any other form of work, but they are indeed intended to be used as convoys. There are also iron nose rings that are used by construction workers and farmers that likes more manual labour. And keep in mind that this species has been domesticated for so long, I'm not even sure there are wild variations of this species anymore. Perhaps there are, and they're just rare or really far away. Perhaps there is a more powerful and violent version of this species compared to this region's version. Or maybe there are none left and they have all been domesticated long ago. I actually don't know the answer to this one. It's something I need to research. What is not hard to say is how much of an impact this species has had on us, despite how their nature lets them go largely unnoticed. They are one of the largest cogs in our modern society, and without them, life would be much worse, and our economy would have withered long ago. Yet, they get no fanfare. Like the farmer who tows the field, they are absolutely needed for our world to function, and the gold carrier does not get the recognition it deserves. People care more about the ones that the warriors and the knights ride, or the bandits and the mercenaries use, but no one really talks about the ones that the merchant or the noble or the worker use. Despite the name and all the talk of convoys, they are used by absolutely everyone, construction and farming as well as transporting gold. The workers use these dragons for all sorts of ways, to tow the land with their bulky strength or to fly over to plant the seeds. Their large body muscles also help with transporting materials for construction, as well as lifting things to help them get through it. And although it is rare, some warriors do indeed ride these beasts. In fact, I remember a rebellion in the Eastern Fard, where the farmers rose up to fight, rode these beasts for quite a while, and they did last a lot longer than they could. Sadly, due to the beast's more passive nature, all of the fighting had to rely on the rider on their back. The dragon's breath was just, well, it never really used it without being heavily prodded, and it was a bit inhumane, so to speak. And that is the sad fact about their docile nature. If something is attacking them, well, they're not really going to fight back. They will flee almost every single time, but they're not as fast as the dragons that are hunting them 9 times out of 10, so it's just resulting in them being slaughtered, unfortunately. But I, for one, think they deserve some recognition. So, I, for one, shall say we raise a glass to the gold carrier, the working dragon that needs some fanfare, if you ask me. So, cheers! Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. But, till next we meet, fellow traveller, have a good day.